Hello, my dear students. This is Mrs. Eman Ahmed with you. I'm going to explain to you today poetry composed upon Westminster Bridge by William Wordsworth. Now, if you look at the poem, the composition of the poem, the form. The poem is made up of 14 lines. If you count the lines, they will be 14. William Wordsworth wrote this poem in the form of a sonnet. I'll explain later what is meant by a sonnet, but let's have a look at the poem itself first. Now, if you look at the poem, you will find that some words are written in Old English, like never saw I. It's the fourth line in the bottom, from the bottom. Now, never here is written in a different way because this was the language poetry was written during the 16th century. Okay? We are going to discuss in the poem many things, of course. You have studied this before in the previous years. The content of the poem, the rhyme scheme, the imagery, the figures of speech, the main idea, and other things, okay? First, we should have a quick idea about William Wordsworth. William Wordsworth is a famous romantic poet, and his poems are usually about nature. You will find that almost all his poems are about nature and God, and respecting God for creating nature for man to enjoy. William Wordsworth also believes that man is part of nature, not only the sun, the sea, the sky, the trees, and the rivers. He believes that man is part of nature, and God created nature for man to enjoy and to thank and respect God for such a great and precious gift as nature. In order to understand William Wordsworth's poetry, we should know some about the elements of Romanticism. And you can find them in his poem, in almost all his poems. First of all, there is loneliness. Most of the Romantic poets, and among them William Wordsworth, feel lonely, and this is greatly and clearly found in his poems. Love of nature. Almost all his poems are about nature, but in different ways. Subjectivity, which means that the poet talks about himself. He is always referring to himself by I, me, my. He talks about himself because we said before that he considers himself as part of nature. And another element, respect for God. He believes that his love for nature should be related to his love for God, because as I said before, God created nature for man to enjoy, so we should thank and respect God for that. Let's have a look at the poem, but in detail. Let's look at the title first. Composed upon Westminster Bridge. You know that William Wordsworth is a British poet, and he is greatly influenced by the environment and by London city. He wrote the poem at the early hours of the morning while standing on Westminster Bridge. The place is very historical, and there are many things that you can find in nature, both man-made and God-made. Look at line number 1. Earth hath not anything to show more fair. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by a sight so touching in its majesty. This city now doth like a garment wear the beauty of the morning silent bear. Ships, towers, domes, theatres, and temples lie open unto the fields and to the sky, all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. Never did sun more beautifully steep in his fair splendor valley, rock, or hill. Never saw I, never felt a calm so deep. The river glideth at his own sweet will. Dear God, the very houses seem asleep, and all the mighty heart is lying still. Okay, again, it's a very beautiful poem about nature. Look at line number 1. Earth hath not anything to show more fair. Can you observe how has is written with the th? Again, this is the Old English. He means that there is nothing more beautiful on earth than the view I am watching now. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by a sight so touching in its majesty. He means a poor, dull, boring person is the person who can pass by such a beautiful sight in the early morning without feeling and enjoying its beauty. This city now doth like a garment wear. Which city does he mean? He means the city of London, of course. He describes it as a very beautiful city in the early morning. It looks very beautiful, like a beautiful lady wearing a beautiful dress, which is the early morning and nature. The beauty of the morning silent bear. He means that when you stand up on the bridge in the early hours of the morning, you can enjoy the beauty of silence, the quietness, the splendor, the greatness. Ships, towers, domes, theatres, and temples lie open unto the fields and to the sky. Now, when he said the ships, towers, domes, theatres, and temples, are these things man-made or God-made? Exactly, very good. They are man-made things. And then he says in the next line, fields and the sky. These are God-made things. The sky, all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. He means that in the early hours of the morning, where everything is asleep, the air is very pure and the sun is shining, it's very bright, and this makes the scene much more beautiful and attractive. In the second part of the poem, he said, never did sun more beautifully steep. He means the sun has never set on a more beautiful view than this one. In his first splendor, valley, rock, or hill. Again, look at those words, valley, rock, or hill. They are God-made or man-made? Exactly, they are nature things. They are God-made things. So there is no contradiction here between the things that man has done and the things in nature that God has created. Both together are very beautiful, forming a very beautiful picture. Then he said, never saw I, never felt a calm so deep. He means, I have never, ever enjoyed such a beautiful, quiet, lovely, spiritual thing in nature. The river glideth at his own sweet will. He said that it seems that the river is moving smoothly by itself. Dear God, the very houses seem asleep. He seems here to talk to God, telling him that everything looks very sleepy, beautiful, and quiet, even the houses. And all the mighty heart is lying still. He means that he is referring to himself as his own heart, and referring to God as well. There is some relation, spiritual relation and affinity between the poet and God. If you go back to the fourth line from the bottom, never saw I. Do we usually say never saw I or I never saw? Exactly. We usually say, I never saw. But why did the poet do that here? Why did he put the verb first? Because what he saw is much more important than himself. He means that what I saw is very important and beautiful. And he referred to himself later because the view and what he had seen is much more important than the poet himself. Now, look at the rhyme scheme of the poem. And you have studied the rhyme scheme before in the first and second prep. The rhyme scheme, again, I'm reminding you, is the music you hear, the sound you listen to at the end of each line. You don't look at the meaning of the word or the spelling, you look at the sound. If the sound is the same, what do? We give it the same letter in the alphabet. Look at the word fair, where, bear, air. They are the same. So, yes, they are written in the color purple because they are the same. So I gave them the same letter, which is A. If you look at the letters in red, the words in red, by, majesty, lie, sky, I gave them the second letter B. They are the same. Then look at the green one. Steep, deep, asleep. I gave them the letter C. Then hill, will, still. They are in black. I gave them the letter D. So if you look at the rhyme scheme, it's A, B, B, A, A, B, B, A, C, D, C, D, C, D. Okay? Now, let's move to the next part. Now, look at the poem. Again, the poem is divided into two parts. The first part, he is talking mainly about nature and describing nature from line 1 to 8. Okay? Look at the next lines, the next 6 lines. He is referring to himself, saying what? So I, right? Never felt. He is referring to himself. The last 2 lines he is referring to God. As we said before, in all his poems, as a romantic poet, William Wordsworth usually refers to God at the end of his poems. The poem is divided into 8 lines and 6 lines, and it's 14 lines as a whole. We call it a sonnet. Again, what is a sonnet? It's a type of writing poetry, meaning that it's a poem made up of 14 lines, dealing with one idea or emotion, usually a personal one. Okay, let's try to think about that. The poet is talking about himself and his love of nature, and this is a personal experience, and it's a personal one, and it is written in 14 lines, so it's a sonnet. Look at the figures of speech. Line number 4. This city now doth like a garment wear. The poet is personifying the city as if it were a lady wearing a beautiful dress. The second personification, line 12. The river glideth at his own sweet will. Does a river has a will of his own? No. The poet is personifying the river as a person who has a will of his own. The next one, the next personification, line 13. Dear God, the very houses seem asleep. Do houses sleep? No, people sleep. So this line is a personification again. The poet personifies the houses as if they were people sleeping. So in this poem we have 3 personification. Then we have in line number 4 another imagery, another figure of speech, which is simile. What is a simile? It's a comparison between 2 things using the word like or as. And here we have the word like. The poet is comparing the city to a lovely, beautiful lady wearing a beautiful dress. So line number 4 is both a personification and a simile at the same time. Then we have in line 11, hysterone, proterone. What does it mean? This is what I said when I refer to the word so I, when he put the verb before the pronoun, before the subject. And instead of saying I saw, he said so I. Why did he do that? To show the importance of what he saw to himself. Again, we call it hysteron proteron. It means something preceding something else in poetry to show its importance. In line number 6, ships, towers, theaters, domes, temples, these things are, as we said before, man-made, built and made by man. But in line 10, valley, rock, or hill, and in other lines, they are things from nature that God has made or that God has created. But the things that are made by man and made by God, both are very beautiful together. They are in harmony, no contradiction. Both are completing the beautiful, perfect picture of nature of the early morning. Commentary on the poem. It means that we are stressing again the important things that we have discussed in the poem. The poem is a sonnet, and I said before, what's a sonnet? It's a poem made up of 14 lines dealing with one idea or emotion, usually a personal one. One idea the poet is dealing with, which is what? Describing the beauty of nature, especially in London, while standing on Westminster Bridge in the early hour of the morning. So this is something personal related to William Wordsworth only, and he is discussing one idea in 14 lines. Okay, the second point, the rhyme scheme. I said it before, we have analyzed it. It's ABBA, ABBA, and those 8 lines are the first part of the poem. Then CD, 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 these are the next part, the octet and the sixth. William Wordsworth, as I said before, is a romantic poet. How do we know that? Because he admires nature and believes that man is part of nature. We cannot deal with nature in isolation from man. He wishes that his days to be linked together in harmony with nature and respect for God. He admires the beauty of nature around him, both man-made and God-made. There is no contradiction. Both are completing each other together and giving us that beautiful view. Now, my dear students, we have come to the questions on the poem. Let's discuss them oral, and then you are going to find the answers. What's a sonnet? Yes, I can hear some students trying to remember the definition of a sonnet. Yes, it's a poem made up of 14 lines dealing with one idea or emotion, usually a personal one. What is the rhyme scheme? Number 2, it's a ABBA, ABBA, CD, CD, CD. Okay? Question number 3. Give an example of personification and explain it. Do you remember, my dear students, we have said the 3 personification. You can choose any one of them. You have this city now that's like a garment wear. You have the very houses seem asleep. You have the river glideth at its own sweet will. So you can choose any of them. He wants only one example. So you can choose one from those 3. And you have to explain it. Question number 4. Give an example of hysteron, proteron, and explain its function. Do you remember the line when we said that he put the verb first to show the importance of what he saw to the importance of himself as a poet? Never saw I. That line. You are going to write it and explain it. Question number 5. What's the main theme of the poem? The poet is describing the beauty of the city of London while standing on Westminster Bridge in the early hours of the morning. He shows the beauty of the city, both man-made and God-made. He wishes to spend his life enjoying nature and respecting God. That is the main idea. Question number 6. What does Wordsworth use to draw the reader's attention to the beauty of the city of London? What did he do to attract our attention and to stress how beautiful the view is? By using certain vocabulary and by using strong imagery, very vivid and lively figures of speech, like the simile and the personification. Question number 7. Mention the elements of romanticism in the poem. We have discussed this early in this poem when we have mentioned 4 elements of romanticism that are depicted in the poem. They are the love of God, the love of nature, subjectivity, loneliness. Okay? Question number 8. What did the poet wish for in the last 2 lines? When he talks to God like a prayer, what did he wish for? What did he want? He wishes his days to be linked together in love for nature and respect for God. By this, we have come to the end of the lesson. Thank you very much, my dear students. And now you will be given few moments to look at the answers to those questions. Good luck and see you again.